The RK61 has to be the most popular budget keyboard on the market. It doesn't matter which online store you browse, which region you're based in, or how new you are to the hobby. You've probably heard of the RK61, or you've seen it at the top of sales charts. I wanted to find out why this keyboard was so popular, if that popularity was justified, and just how much we can improve this budget keyboard with some easy mods. The RK61 comes in white or black cases. You can choose between blue, red, or brown RK switches for both colors. I got my unit from Banggood with the red switches for about $50. This is the newest iteration of the RK61, and there's a few things you can check to make sure that the model you're buying is the latest one. The backlight should be RGB instead of single color, the USB connector is towards the left side instead of the center, it's hot swap, and it has 3 connection modes: wired, Bluetooth, and a 2.4 GHz dongle. Inside the packaging, you'll find the keyboard itself, a manual, a switch and keycap puller, a USB-C cable, and some spare switches. The case is made from plastic. It has a textured finish to it and it feels a bit more smooth than rough. The case has an 8-degree typing angle and mostly straight lines throughout. There's a Royal Kludge logo on the front of the case, which looks a bit wonky on my unit. This is a top-mounted keyboard, which is expected at this price point. There's wide, non-adjustable rubber feet on the bottom of the case. You'll also find 2 switches here, the on-off switch and the connection selector switch to toggle between Bluetooth and 2.4 GHz. The 2.4 GHz dongle is also attached to the bottom of the case. There's a magnet on the other side to hold it in place. The battery life is rated at 10 hours, but I've been getting well over that number in my use. This is a compact 60% layout, which means you'll lose the arrow keys. There's a neat workaround to this though. You can toggle a function to use a cluster of keys on the right side of the keyboard as arrow keys by tapping on them. The PCB features scale hot swap sockets and per key RGB. You can control the RGB through shortcuts on the keyboard itself. The PCB is not facing though, so you'll need to be mindful of using the right types of switches if you want to avoid interference with cherry profile keycaps. There's a dense layer of foam between the PCB and plate, and Royal Kludge also included a thin foam inside the case. The included keycaps are OEM profile, and they're made of shine-through ABS material. The sub-legends show the layers of functionality that you can access by holding down the function button. The stabilizers on this keyboard are plate mounted and they're pretty decent. They come with a ton of lube from the factory and they felt quite mushy, but we'll mod the stabilizers to make them better. Now it's time to upgrade this keyboard to bring out its full potential. For the switches, I decided to swap my RK red switches with Gateron yellow pros that come pre-lubed from the factory. They have a 50 gram actuation force, 2mm of pre-travel, and 4mm of travel. For the keycaps, I went with some GMK Rudy clones from AliExpress. They're also OEM profile, but they felt much higher quality than the stock keycaps. For the stabs, I cleaned up the factory lube and clipped off the excess feet. I lubed the housing with Krytox 205G0 and I used dielectric grease on the wires. Next, I did the tempest tape mod with 3 layers of masking tape on the back of the PCB, being sure to cut out holes for the JST connector and switches. I also added a 2mm EVA foam and layered it with the thinner case foam that was already included. Now let's assemble everything back together and let's find out how this keyboard sounds. If you like the content, please consider leaving a thumbs up and subscribing. We recently hit 100 subs and I just want to thank all of you guys for the support. So what are some things I like and dislike about the keyboard? Let's start with the pros. This is probably the easiest modding experience I've had with any keyboard. You don't need to mess about removing random keycaps to find where the plate screws are. Just remove the 4 screws at the bottom of the case and you have access to the internals. Lastly, value. I love a good deal, and this RK61 just screams great value. For $50, you get a whole lot included in the package. 3 connection modes, hot swap, RGB, switches, keycaps, the list here is extensive. Now onto the cons, and let's start with the switches and keycaps. The RK red switches just aren't that good. They felt quite mushy and they weren't the smoothest in the world. The stock keycaps looked and felt cheap to me as well. The printing of the legends and sub-legends look a bit too busy. That may not be a bad thing for you, but I generally prefer a cleaner, minimal aesthetic. Next up, the oval lube stabilizers. This is a subjective take. If you just want to use the keyboard without taking it apart, the lube on the stabilizers is actually a good thing. But if you're an enthusiast and you want to mod the stabilizers, it's a nightmare to work with. I had to disassemble everything, wash them with soap, dry it, and repeat the entire process because the lube just didn't want to come out. It's worth the effort though. They felt and sounded so much better after some love and attention. So what do I think about the new RK61, and should you buy it? Well, numbers don't lie. There's a reason the RK61 has been pumping out the sales numbers it had over the past couple of years. The slight improvements on this new model are welcomed, especially as they maintain the low price point that made it so competitive in the first place. The RK61 is a solid pre-built keyboard out of the box, and it's an easy and forgiving base for modding. I can see both beginners and enthusiasts appreciating this keyboard for what it offers, and that's probably why it's still one of the most popular keyboards ever. Remember, this keyboard only costs $50. At that price point, you could do a lot worse, but not much better. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.